All right, today we're going to tackle one of the absolute cornerstones of object-oriented programming, invariants. Seriously, if you can get a handle on this, you're going to write cleaner, more efficient, and way more reusable code. So why does this matter so much? Well, let's dive in and find out. So, to kick things off, let's talk about a problem that, well, it drives every developer nuts at some point: repetition. It is a massive headache in software engineering, and we're not just talking about messy code. We're talking about creating real, expensive problems down the line. Just take a look at these three code blocks for a polygon, a rectangle, and a triangle. Do you see it? I mean, look closely. A huge chunk of the code, the variables for the vertices, the coordinates, even that set function, it's exactly the same. It's literally just been copied and pasted. A classic case of copy-paste programming. And look, this isn't just about being tidy. Think about it. When you have that same code scattered all over the place and you need to make one tiny change, you have to hunt down every single copy. And if you miss just one, boom, you've just introduced a bug. It's incredibly inefficient, it slows everything down, and it makes your whole application really fragile. So when you're stuck in that cycle of copying, pasting, and fixing, you inevitably ask yourself this question. There has to be a better way to do this, right? And the answer, thankfully, is yes. The solution is a really elegant concept, a core pillar of object-oriented programming, and it's called inheritance. It all boils down to this super powerful idea: don't repeat yourself, reuse. So what is it really? Well, think of it as a way to create a brand new class that's based on one that already exists. The new class just automatically gets all the features of the original, it inherits them, and then you can add your own specialized features right on top. You know, the easiest way to wrap your head around this is with a real-world analogy. It's just like a child inheriting traits like eye color or height from their parents. The child has those traits, but they're still their own unique person. It is the exact same principle in our code. What this does is create a really logical connection that we call an ISA relationship. And you see it everywhere. A poodle is a dog. A car is a vehicle. And yeah, going back to our code example, a rectangle is a shape. This isn't just some programming trick. It's about making your code mirror the real world, which makes it way, way easier to understand and work with. Okay, so we've got the what and the why down. Let's actually dig in and see how this whole code family tree gets built. What are the mechanics? The lingo here is pretty simple, actually. The class we inherit from is called the base class. Just think of it as the parent. And the new, more specialized class that we create is called the derived class. That's the child. Simple as that. Okay, and this is where things get really cool. We can build these huge, complex hierarchies. You can start with something really general, like an animal class, right? And that class has the basics, maybe an eat method or a sleep method. Then you can get more specific. You create a lion class, a tiger class, a cat class. They all inherit the ability to eat and sleep from animal, but then you can give them their own special behaviors, like roar for the lion. So the key thing to remember here is that the child class gets pretty much everything from the parent, all its data, all its functions. Now, there are a few little exceptions, like the special functions that create and destroy objects, but we'll get to those in just a bit. Right. But just like in a real family, sometimes you have secrets, right? You don't share everything with everyone. And it's the same in programming. We need a way to control what the child classes can see and use from the parent. The way we do this is with these little keywords called access specifiers, and they basically act like gatekeepers. They control the visibility of the parent's members. So, for example, something that's public in the parent stays public for the child, but something that's private becomes totally off limits. And this table here is the perfect breakdown. You've got public, which is a total open book, everyone can see it. Then you have private, which is super secret, only the class itself can access it. But then there's this one in the middle, protected. And that's the interesting one. It's accessible to the class itself and its family of derived classes, but it's kept hidden from the rest of the world. Protected is really the magic ingredient here. It finds that perfect sweet spot. It keeps things private from the outside world, but it's totally open to the family, the derived classes. It's like your family's inside jokes, only you guys get it. Okay, so what happens when we actually go to create one of these derived objects? There's a very specific, very logical order to how everything gets built and then, later, torn down. It's actually pretty intuitive when you think about it. You need the foundation before you can build the house, right? So when an object is created, the base class constructor gets called first. Then the derived class constructor builds on top of that. And when it's time to clean up and destroy the object, it happens in the exact reverse order. The derived class destructor goes first, and then the base class destructor. And check this out, you can see the proof right here in this code's output. To create a cylinder, it first builds a point, then a circle on top of that, and finally the cylinder. And when it gets destroyed, you guessed it, the order is perfectly reversed. Cylinder, circle, point. It's not random, it's a rule. So look, inheritance is an amazing tool. It's incredibly powerful. But with great power, well, as you start building more complicated systems, you can run into some, let's call them interesting situations. So here's a little heads up for when you get deeper into this. One of the classic headaches you might run into is something called the diamond problem. It sounds kind of cool, but it's a real pain. It happens when you have a class that inherits from two different parent classes, and both of those classes inherit from the same grandparent. You end up with this diamond shape in your class diagram. So why is this a problem? Well, imagine that grandparent class A has some function, let's call it foo function. Now our child class down at the bottom, D, wants to call foo. Which one should it use? The one it gets from B or the one it gets from C? The compiler literally doesn't know, it's totally ambiguous. Now, the good news is, languages like C++ saw this problem coming. They have a solution built right in, and it's called virtual inheritance. All you do is add the virtual keyword, and you're basically telling the compiler, hey, merge these two paths together. It makes sure the child class only gets one single copy of the grandparent, and poof, the ambiguity is gone. Pretty neat. And that really brings us to the big idea here. You know, inheritance isn't just some abstract programming concept. It's a fundamental principle about how we create things, about building on top of solid work that's already been done. So I guess the question I want to leave you with is this. What incredible things are you going to build now that you know you don't ever have to start completely from scratch?